Hey folks, and welcome to the Daily Ratings Podcast. It's a show where each week we'll sit down with Vincent Daly to get his thoughts on the latest movies he's been watching, both older films and new releases. And don't worry, there's no spoilers. Vince will give a brief review of the movie, share some thoughts, and of course, then rate the film. The daily ratings are always fair, honest, and most importantly, they're consistent. On today's show, Vince will be rating and reviewing Beowulf, directed by Robert Zemeckis, Spotlight by Tom McCarthy. We have newly released Tar by Todd Field, Armageddon Time by James Gray, and finally, Black Panther Wakanda Forever, directed by Ryan Coogler. It's going to be a great show, so stay tuned and enjoy. Mr. Vincent Daly, how we doing, buddy?
Tommy boy, how's it going?
It's going okay over here. How was your week of movies, man?
Week was good. A lot of pre-Oscar buzz, of course. With a
Really?
Armageddon Time, Tar. Who knows? Maybe Wakanda Forever will get a nod as well.
I'm upset I didn't hear about any of these, really.
Yeah. So
Well, it's not for Black Panther, but you know.
Right, yeah. But yeah, it kind of inspired a little bit of the watching this week, returning to some previous Oscar winners, some previous critical buzz, and yeah, excited to talk about the movies as always.
All right, cool. All right, well, let's just get started right away. Beowulf, 2007, Robert Zemeckis. Why was this on your list? I love it, by the way.
Right.
But it is on your list.
It is definitely on my list. I definitely watched this movie and definitely did not enjoy it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I wasn't digging this one.
Did you see it in theaters?
No, I never saw this back in the day. This was 2007 and definitely would have been during the time. I mean, I remember it coming out. I remember the buzz around Angelina Jolie being, semi-naked in it.
Yeah.
And yeah. So.
When it came out, I liked it.
Yeah.
But it also came out in 2007, and we were younger then.
This film has aged drastically.
Saw it in theaters.
Since the days of pre-financial crisis times.
Well, it's Robert Zemeckis who also did the animated Tom Hanks Polar Express.
Polar Express, Christmas Carol, that's all within his 2000s work.
So he was like on a hot...
Yeah. He was
He was on a hot train of this animation style. When this came out, I was super impressed with it. I thought the going thing was that the animation was cool, lifelike, and good. I will say at the time, I remember somebody saying it was like I was watching Shrek. So,
there definitely is some Shrek vibes. Certain characters look like they are out of Shrek.
All right. So in 2007, what was supposed to be hyper-realistic animation.
Yeah.
What's the 2022 watch now?
The 2022 watch is definitely that this... Unfortunately, that I feel the animation has aged very poorly to the point that my note is I said I feel like it looks like ass. And that there are a lot of asses in the film as well. I think for me, the reason why it doesn't maybe pass or it didn't really give me a lot of interest in watching it in modern day is that the animation doesn't seem to be inspired to be an animated film. Cinematography, the wild nature of what anime or animation can be, that there are no rules. It can be just pure imagination, especially as that translates to action sequences. Very boring movie, very dull fantasy movie, and on top of the visuals now looking poor, I found very little reason to recommend this film. So,
because the animation was that bad.
Yeah, and again, I would say crafting, the filmmaking with the animation a little bit uninspired. There was no moment that I was saying, wow, that could only be done in animation.
So really, it's almost like Zemeckis should have just actually used real people.
Yeah,
or live action, I should say.
Absolutely. I think, especially doing some research into Beowulf, as far as like the Old English tale, it is could have been right in line with the epics of the time.
Yeah, it actually could have been awesome.
Yeah.
Was this, looking back at it now, was it like was it like PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3?
Definitely PlayStation 3 for sure. It reminded me a lot of like Final Fantasy. They have very high fidelity cutscenes and whatnot.
Yeah. But PlayStation 3. We're on 5 now, right?
Yeah, we're on 5.
Okay.
We're on 5. People can finally get 5. So, but yeah, this was really born from watching Pinocchio with Zemeckis, and like we noted in that review. In the 2000s, he's exclusively doing these type of productions. So the other two being Christmas movies, that's what really lands us with Beowulf.
So this obviously following the original kind of epic poem, correct?
Yeah, it is an Old English tale. Beowulf is kind of a response in universe why they would go with this now or back in 2007. I believe, trying to track this back a little bit, it probably was in response to 2006's 300, that they wanted these more action-focused fantasy films.
Lore kind of as well. Interesting.
And specifically fantasy films that don't have to be this labor of production, that they can just kind of be action films.
Yeah.
And Beowulf is really nothing more than just a flashy action film that is fully CGI animated.
Okay.
So this approach to fantasy, I think it's action first as the backbone. And while the runtime tries to pack in as many badass moments as possible, that really is the sole focus of this film, and many followed in 300's success in just the same way that this is following in 300's success. So, understanding this, I don't fault the team for making the film. There is some great talent to the production, including writer Neil Gaiman as well. But the more I watched it, the less I found I could appreciate about the fully animated style. I mean, it really just yeah.
It's like watching a video game. A long video game cut.
It's worse. It's like watching like a gross, I don't know. There's like gross out humor in this. There's I don't know how this film is rated PG-13.
Really?
Oh yeah, there is excessive amounts of blood. It's always flirting with nudity. Like, this film has a fascination with with putting their actors and actresses in, semi-nude type of scenarios.
Helps that it's animated, I guess.
Right. They can get it through. So when I look at this entirely CGI animated film, only a fraction of my criticism is toward the fidelity of the graphics. I'm primarily watching this film for how it uses animation as a medium to enhance its storytelling, to enhance the feel of the film and the presentation. And the focus of the animation here doesn't really enhance any action. I mean, there are some interesting... For instance, there's one of the earliest fights with the main villain monster. There's a couple interesting shots that I guess simulate a swinging chandelier. But these type of creative shots that, frankly speaking, have no limitations to it. In animation, the presentation of the screen can be anything.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
In this film, it just is it's shot or it's presented so blandly and so like every other fantasy film, and then the story itself being kind of an Old English tale. Guess what?
A little blah.
Yeah, a little straightforward fantasy. Maybe there's a reason why this wasn't greenlit, back in the day or something like that. So.
Huh. And it's an hour and 55 too. So were you checking your watch?
No. Pacing is all right.
Okay, all right.
Pacing is all right. Pacing will be a problem I revisit later on this week, because there's some long run times this week I had to sit through. But yeah, that's really my focus, is that the animation doesn't really do anything to enhance the presentation. Instead, the animation seems to be an excuse for gross out humor, a lot of fake blood that just looks even at lesser quality than the other CGI. Like I said, surprisingly erotic for a PG-13 movie. The amount of times Beowulf strips down butt naked is hysterical.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's kind of a plot point, but...
I don't remember any of this in the film.
Yeah, it starts as an excuse. He wants to fight the monster. The monster has no armor, so he has to fight it with no armor. And then 2 other times he just strips down naked. And then, and you know, like we touched on already, you know, there was a huge, I feel, back in the day, I don't know if it was word of mouth or actually a marketing push, but Angelina Jolie being semi-naked in this.
Huge marketing push.
Huge.
Oh my God.
I feel like that was the only draw for this movie back in the day. So, Beowulf, I would say, does have a strength, and the movie, that is. And I think it's the cast. You know, we have Anthony Hopkins, John Malkovich, Robin Wright, Angelina Jolie. All of them.
Crispin Glover, too, don't forget.
Yeah. Is Crispin your boy? Or
No, definitely not.
Okay.
And Beowulf played by Ray Winston. Or did you say that right? Yeah.
No, I didn't.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't actually recognize him too much, Ray Winston, in other things that he's done.
Oh, he's kind of in B movies, but I like him in the movies that he's in, for the most part.
Yeah. And you know, I mean, for what it's worth, this type of concept, I feel, is also an evolution of what we talked about with the tech with Gollum and Andy Serkis, that it's taking this concept of CGI animated actor actually working on a soundstage. Yeah. And obviously today, this is ultra common when we talk about Marvel or anything like that. That's how they are done now. So there is credit I want to give to the cast, but again, the story itself plays out so blah. So, okay, you know what I mean? Yeah. I was having a hard time being engaged with it. But hey, if you're interested in the good cast here, maybe you're interested yourself to see 2007 Angelina Jolie CGI ass. Maybe this is something that you can go and return to. Flat out, I don't see a big reason to return to this movie, but there is certainly some noteworthy aspects to it. CGI, the presentation, the animation is not one of those. Yeah. And I'm still, let me say this, I'm still plenty curious about watching more of Zemeckis' work, especially between this one being in smack dab in the middle of him stumbling into this tech. Specifically maybe Christmas Carol with Jim Carrey after this. You know, was there time for him to maybe develop this style a little bit more, that we, have a better presentation to it? Unfortunately, though, I do think Beowulf is a pass for me. We're going to go ahead and give Beowulf 2007 a 31.
Oh, geez, okay. It's worse than I thought.
Yeah. I mean, listen.
That's all right. I mean, that's
give it
fine.
a watch.
Looking at the stills, it looks terrible.
Right. It's weird because sometimes it will be... I can see what reviewers at the time were saying, that this is like, oh my God, this is borderline photorealistic, I
thought it was amazing when I first saw it.
Yeah.
It was in this big, real 3D kick too.
Oh yeah.
And you got the good 3D glasses, yeah.
There's definitely some remnant 3D that you can see here. Yeah. There's a scene where like a guy points a spear to the camera and it hangs on it for like 5 minutes. So it's like...
I mean, it's not like Spy Kids bad.
No. But I honestly don't knock any film for having those 3D remnants, because if it works in the scene, it works for the scene, So
yeah,
you dude.
when has it actually enhanced the scene?
Right.
Okay. All right. So 31 for Beowulf. I'm glad you tackled it.
Listen.
I mean, nothing's more shocking. Okay, let's just move on.
Nothing's more shocking than
because we have to get to this one. This is 2015 Spotlight. This film on its own is...
we have a vendetta for this film.
Not a vendetta. It's if a movie could be a thief at the same time. That's how I look at this film.
This was a thief.
This movie is a thief.
That's great.
And was a thief.
I'm glad that you're still holding the torch so adamantly.
The fan favorite, Mark Ruffalo, with the worst speech in this film.
Oh, he's so bad.
It's so bad. And apparently he worked... I'll tell you what. Set this film up for us here.
Okay. Well,
those
some of my opening notes definitely highlight what we're talking about here, folks. So I'm going to be honest, and I said, I know, Tom, you're on the right page with this. You proved before I even said that you're on the right page. But we both really hated this movie for a long time because... This was the Oscar winner in the same year, Best Picture winner in the same year that not only Mad Max Fury Road came out, but The Revenant came out. And I mean, both of these films are leagues better than Spotlight,
Literally leagues better than Spotlight.
Oh, yeah. From, on so many levels. I mean, I'm not saying that this is a bad film, but I feel like I was a hater of this film for a long time. And
Yeah.
I
Now,
still kind of am a hater of the film, but I wanted to give it its fair shake. 'Cause,
You watched it pre-Oscars, correct?
yes, but it wasn't rated on our end.
So I watched it post-Oscar. Because once when it won, I was just like,
all right,
that's dumb. I need to watch it now. I think, or when it was nominated, I watched it, but
Sure.
I walked away and I was just like, are you
Are you kidding?
freaking kidding me? And we know why it won, all the church stuff, everything
Right,
about
right.
I mean, and it was just, apparently Mark Ruffalo worked really hard with the actual character he was playing, like the guy
really?
in real life.
Okay.
And he even like gave him lines, say, how would you say this?
Interesting.
But like he is so aggravating to watch. Mark Ruffalo. He is so the cast is
He's-
big.
yeah.
It's Mark Ruffalo. It's Michael Keaton, who I like in it.
Yep.
Rachel McAdams,
Huge.
who I love. Stanley Tucci.
Yep.
So
Stanley Tucci. I forgot about Stanley Tucci.
so it's just like I don't know. Why don't you go ahead and take it?
He's done with it already.
I'm stuttering because I know I don't like it, and I think there's so little to be said about it.
Well,
I'm
yeah.
annoyed with how big it is. I'm annoyed that Revenant should have won Best Picture
The flame is alive, folks.
or Mad Max.
Yeah. I
Or
agree.
Mad Max.
I mean, yeah. I 100% agree.
This was
with
the
you.
year of Captain Phillips too, right?
No,
Captain
no,
Phillips
no.
was 2014, I think.
I believe so. Yeah. He's like, don't get me worked up on Phillips.
Let's get into it a little bit.
Yeah. So, well, the reason why I watched this week is because we're coming up on a lot of Oscar baity type of films. Both Tar and Armageddon Time, very Oscar baity. And She Said is coming up in the couple of weeks and looks to be identical in how it's gunning for this investigative drama,
Interesting.
And how the drama itself is about dancing around the messy topic itself for the entire runtime. You know what I mean? I think, again, that hit Spotlight perfectly, on how it's built and how the tension is built for it. But one we had a feud with, and Spotlight is, just a tough dice roll. And like I said, I was a hater for a long time, but I wanted to give it a fair thought. So this is this is that. Tom, don't hate me if I'm even vaguely positive on this film. Spotlight refers to a small crack investigation team for the Boston Globe. This is a small team of 4, and they are the best of the best. The film does a wonderful job at building them up as a kind of a living legend in their industry. In between topics for their column, the team begins to look into the Catholic Church and the many reported molestations brushed under the rug in Boston alone, and their kind of focus is just Boston, but obviously grows to be much larger. I would say my favorite aspect of this film is definitely the team focus of Spotlight. Every time they say the name, it kind of holds a certain recognition and a gravity in the film and in the city that they're referencing in. And we never get introduced to Spotlight in a bulky exposition that this is the crack team and they are the best. We feel it through the world building. We feel it through the characters referring to it on their own.
Do you think because it's based on a real story, Spotlight is a real thing? Do you think that adds to it as well?
Sure, there could be a self-congratulatory element that Spotlight is, and they got it right, so they are the best.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't mean it like that either. I just mean that because we're dealing with real events, an actual real investigative team, that it just carries a little bit more weight than if we're watching a fictional kind of thing.
Absolutely. But definitely my praise here is that I enjoyed this team aspect. I enjoyed the team problem solving, and specifically as well how this team was built in the world without, telling us they are the crack team. We feel that they are the crack team.
Yep.
My main criticism to this film, though, is pacing, actually. Which is probably going to be an issue for all the films we cover this episode.
I didn't realize. It's 2 hours and 9 minutes.
Yeah,
I didn't realize it was like around 2:10. That's a lot.
Yeah. Honestly, the topic of their investigation is very interesting, but it just drags a bit when most anyone watching knows the outcome. There's not enough within the conflict to keep us engaged. If anything, there's a lot of scenes that progress with the outcome already known to its characters, and it's just reiterating and reiterating and reiterating. A perfect example is evidence is presented for us in these interview processes, and it's repeated again and again to highlight that these stories are pretty similar. And believe me, I get that there is a certain conflict. There's a dramatic tension to, you finding out, hey, there's similarities in all these cases. There's similarities in all these different stories, but as that's presented towards us visually, we're just getting beat over the head again and again with the same type of scenes.
Yep.
And then content-wise, we're also getting beat over the head with the same type of content. And I just feel like each reveal, each commonplace between stories didn't it didn't escalate the stakes or the conflict at all. It was just kind of like, okay, I know where they're going to go and they're going to actually solve this.
Yeah, it kind of flattens itself or plateaus a little bit. Mm-hmm. And I will say it hurts itself too because it's not a fun subject matter and it's very sad and everything like that. This isn't a cracked investigative team going after the mob or anything like that.
Sure.
This is not exactly fun content or actioning anyway. So it is just... It's a lot of talking back and forth, and a lot of it, as you say, is the same. And what's being talked about is not exactly the most thrilling.
Yeah, and I think
very intense.
Right. You're so right because that's actually why I like Keaton's character the most, because he is kind of this Boston local, and he does have a conflict that he feels in trying to do this work and whatnot.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. I think I would actually agree with him. I liked seeing him.
Yeah.
And it's also just Keaton, too.
Yeah, exactly. This was 2015. This was, I believe, year after Birdman? Or when was Birdman? 2013?
You might be right about that. Yeah, it might be. Yeah.
So definitely on his return. So you can kind of feel the Oscar baitiness all over this film as well. It's undeniable. It's in the somber but curious piano soundtrack by Howard Shore. It's how the film is shot, very plainly, very investigative. One thing I did enjoy is I enjoyed how 2000s, the news office atmosphere was. Set design, I think, is a big plus here. And also, some retro icons that are enjoyable. There's an AOL ad, for instance, and I give credit to it because back in 2015, that was probably an interesting callback, and little things like that. Those are not the ads that I criticize so much that it's for marketing within the movie. That is more so of a world building piece and puts us in the time period. So, without having a line of dialogue attached to it, I think that's a good positive for me.
Yeah, definitely.
So. But it wouldn't be an Oscar film without a actor rundown. Let's talk about it. Mark Ruffalo is just flat out annoying in this.
So he's so annoying.
I'm 100% with you, Tom, on this. Wow.
I mean,
I think retroactively after watching this, I like Mark Ruffalo less.
I don't care if that's what the real guy sounded like.
Is that really because he has this corner of the mouth thing that I did not understand?
He's doing something with his lower jaw and. Yeah, it's just terrible, and it's horribly annoying. Yeah. And if that's what the guy actually did in real life, it's almost like, well, for the movie, drop it.
Right.
Because it's annoying.
It's annoying, and maybe even like insulting a little bit. Like his performance is lesser for this vocal intricacy that he's going for.
Terrible, absolutely terrible.
It's a shame because Ruffalo is very much a lone wolf within the story of Spotlight as a team, but also structured as well in the runtime. Yeah. He finds individual type of things, so we get a lot of Spotlight with him, and it's not great. Specifically, you can feel it when he is just turning it up for award season, and when he isn't, and that's where I relate to some of this weird acting or method acting he was doing with his mouth and
just his speech. So how he decided to talk is just
But that goes out the window when he has to give his soapbox Oscar moment and he's yelling and he's saying, this matter. They know. Yeah, exactly. With that type of stuff, it goes off the window then. So
very true.
Michael Keaton is great. I think his character was a probably the most enjoyable in the sense that I appreciated his Boston local perspective as the character, and I think that's very important for the message of this story. And Rachel McAdams, very solid. I enjoy her in this kind of investigation role from True Detective Season 2. But the sleeper hit in the group is Brian D'Arcy James, which
Really?
yeah. I enjoyed him a lot. Total no name in the 4, but a great member of the team and has some great moments. Definitely the what makes you say, "Oh, that's my guy" in the film. It was also the only one, and maybe Rachel McAdams as well, that was just kind of being natural with the subject matter and not using it as a soapbox to get an Oscar nod or something like that.
Oh, okay.
On the spectrum of Ruffalo to D'Arcy James.
Right. Okay, wow, that's good to hear.
But
surprising.
And why I return to my love of the team here, we don't really see any one person besides Ruffalo stand out. It takes a team to bring this big topic to light, and it was enjoyable as a format to the story, giving us different reactions to the topic, giving us different reactions to the individuals dealing with this big story, and I just really enjoyed the format of it there. So, my hating aside, this was a very good movie. I strongly stand by my original belief, though. Mad Max and Revenant were originals, and while this film is good, this film plays to the role it needed to for the win. We're going to go ahead and give Spotlight a 73.
Okay, that's fine. I mean, it was in the Oscars, and it won the Oscar for Best Picture. So, 73 is a pretty good score.
It is a pretty good,
but it was a big
movie.
I think it's just because we need to.
It's not a great movie.
We need to tamp down the hype.
Exactly.
Ruffalo was nominated for Best Supporting Actor. Did you know that?
Thankfully, he didn't win.
Yeah, but he was nominated. I mean, that's embarrassing for them, the Oscars. By the way, Michael Keaton, he's like 71. He looks great for 71.
71?
Not in the film, but still.
Sure,
today. It's like, he looks so good.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, I had something else to say, too. Oh, a movie you might want to check out was a Netflix original called Worth.
Oh, okay.
And it rides a lot like this. So Michael Keaton plays the main guy, but he plays the lawyer who has to try to find what sum of money is acceptable for the 9/11 victims and their families.
Interesting.
And one of the main guys who was affected by 9/11 is Stanley Tucci. Because his wife died in the towers.
Oh, really?
Well, the characters and everything like that.
Right.
Yeah. So it's kind of, Michael Keaton trying to just go in as a lawyer. He has to find a heart to connect with the people, and he needs to get Tucci's acceptance. But it takes on almost this role of just a lot of talking with people back and forth.
Sure.
And it almost becomes reporter-esque, essentially. Maybe something to check out.
Yeah.
Because Keaton and Tucci they're good actors. I like both.
Absolutely. Yeah. Tucci, I definitely have a soft spot for.
Yeah, and he has the best show on CNN.
Oh, really?
His CNN, yeah.
Tucci has a show on CNN?
It's 2 seasons now.
Wow. Didn't know that.
It's just food in Italy. No joke. It's just food in Italy.
They lost Bourdain, and they're like, who's the next Italian? We got to get one.
But it's great. But it's like, it's each episode is just a little specific spot in Italy.
That's great.
Anyway, Tucci's great. But anyway, yeah, check out Worth, maybe.
Sure.
Because I think it would actually be a good kind of double header or double feature.
Yeah, maybe even in line with She Said coming up.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Okay. All right, Vince. So that's 73 for Spotlight. And Ruffalo's the... You know what's funny? When did... The best Ruffalo ever was in the wrestling movie, The Foxcatcher.
Oh, yes. He was good in Fox.
I forget what year that was.
Admittedly doing weird vocal
Yes,
work,
I was just going to say that. Doing weird vocal stuff.
I don't think is his strong suit,
What is his strong suit?
I don't know.
Tell me
Hulk
Tell
CGI.
me what his...
Bad mocap.
Ruffalo sucks. Okay, so, folks, we just want to remind everybody, we're producer-supported here. We operate off the value-for-value model. So, is the podcast valuable to you? Is the website valuable to you? Are you getting more enjoyment from film and movies and everything like that? If you could, you go to thedailyratings.com, you head to the donations tab, and through monetary support, you can send in whatever amount that you want, and you can write in a note, which we'll read, and it just helps keep the show going. The notes are a through line to you. And basically, it's also a producer credit to you. We consider you producers, and it's a legit producer credit to your name.
We value your input too. I mean, so much of the conversation has really been driven by how you're using the site and how you're enjoying the podcast. We make it, but we want to hear on the impact.
Yeah, big time.
The side of
it. And it's really that's almost an ask us anything too. We don't do tier structures. We don't do the Patreon where spend this much and whoa, we give you a little bit of this, and then you spend this much and whoa, you get it all.
Right.
It's all there. It's all free. Everyone, we are building some stuff, not only the site, but we have hopefully some more content coming in the future and everything like that. So, and that's kind of why it's a value for value model. It's all there, but if you're getting anything, could you kick us back some value? Mm-hmm. And also, most importantly right now, too, is tell someone about it. It would be huge for us. Tell a friend, a family member, whatever. Mm-hmm. If you could, just propagate the message a little bit. Get our name out there. A lot of people use Rotten Tomatoes, and let's make it so a lot less people use Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, for real.
It's at dailyratings.com. Again, you go to the donations tab on the top right. On mobile, I have to fix it, but you just scroll all the way down to the bottom of the site.
He was complaining about this pre-recording.
And you click on the support us button all the way down to the bottom of the homepage on mobile.
There we go.
Okay.
We supplement with instructions.
Yeah, that's quality content. That's value right there.
That's value.
All right, Vince. So we're gonna jump. I wasn't expecting 3 new films.
Yeah.
Again, I'm excited to kind of hear about some of these. Let's start right away. This one is called Tar, and as you said, this is Oscar buzz, apparently, and Cate Blanchett is in it.
Yeah.
Set this movie up a little bit. Just give us a quick synopsis. What is it, and how'd it fare?
Absolutely. So Lydia Tarr, one of the greatest composers of our time, but don't be intimidated by the lack of background knowledge, folks. She is an entirely fictional character that this film portrays as real. The film kind of has a game in itself to try to make you feel that this character is as real as possible. And one of the major accomplishments of this film is selling the idea, the character as real, even though it is all fiction. And I feel the film is successful at doing that, even though I do have a lot of gripes with this film, unfortunately.
Okay.
This film is getting almost universal praise, and I was very excited to watch it because I was kind of looking for a frontrunner this year for Oscar talk and whatnot. I'll get into Blanchett's performance, but I think it's phenomenal.
Okay,
I
good,
just
good.
really don't like the story, and I really don't like the runtime on this. So much so that it really sinks the film.
Yeah, it's 2 hours and 38.
Yeah,
which I think is more than All Quiet on the Western Front.
Oh, really?
All Quiet was 10 minutes shorter.
And then we had Black Panther 240.
Holy shit!
Oh yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot.
So is this just a
so watching hours this week?
Is it a heavy story, and just to be that long, or?
No, if anything, the story is very melancholy. I just want to say that even knowing the truth that she is fiction, that this composer character Lydia Tarr is not real. Mm-hmm. The film will do such a good job at selling the idea of this and selling it to such a real kind of modern biopic type of story, almost documentary even, that you find yourself even questioning. I found myself questioning. Wait, are you sure she's not real? Is it maybe inspired by someone?
Yeah.
So there's a very interesting real fantasy that is kind of sold here, and I want to give credit to it.
That's impressive.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Cate Blanchett delivers, I would say, a hyper demanding script with constant switches in language. I had issues with this film, but really, it might be the single best performance for Blanchett to date, and that's why I think this easily has my Oscar pick as far as best supporting, best actress this year.
Yeah, I mean, what else would it be?
Exactly. I don't see a lot of front runners, but this not only was phenomenal, but and I know you're a fan of Blanchett, or at least
no, huge fan of Blanchett.
Okay.
Like, it's very good to hear because lately I don't feel like we've been getting a whole lot.
Yeah,
as far as good, I mean, I ripped into her.
Oh, with the
Ocean special, and rightfully so.
That's why I said I don't know if he is a fan anymore. But
no, absolutely, yeah. And it's. Like you said, she is the... What do you think the percentage of her on screen is?
Oh, it's all her.
Wow.
It's 100% her. So
it's a long movie.
It is a long movie. And I'll get into... And I'm coming in very positive because there's a lot to be positive about. I'll definitely get into some of my negative in a bit. But let me focus on Blanchett because she is, stellar in this. She is able to keep up with deep, highbrow dialogue around, orchestral technical speak the classical music industry, music history, music theory.
Okay.
My praise here is that it both comes off as deeply technical and deeply highbrow, but also realistic and believable, which is definitely the balancing act. You can make a hyper-technical script, but the dialogue is not going to deliver it well. Guess what?
Oh, for
it's
sure.
Not going to
my
sell.
God. Yeah,
you know
yeah,
what I mean? It's going to feel like prescribed to the actor. But Blanchett, I believe, why the praise is worthy to be given to her is that she's able to sell it. She's really able to live this character. And again, there's this kind of meta quality that is this character real? Is it not? It kind of sells its own idea constantly. Not an easy thing to do. You can write whatever you want, but if it's not coming out natural and realistic, again, like I said, that's going to be prescribed to the actors. Extremely highbrow, and I bring this up as well because in watching it, this may not be a lot of people's bag. There are no training wheels to us jumping into the classical music industry, technical talk around composing, high society, who consumes the type of upper echelon that consumes this type of music. Add this all on top of juggling multiple languages, most notably German. Blanchett is doing a tremendous job in juggling, I think, at least a good 3 to 4 languages here in this performance.
Really?
Yeah. And weaves in and out because she's dealing with, such interesting characters. And
wow, interesting.
Yeah. The story itself, we have this melancholy tone to the story of Self, and this is where, unfortunately, I have to move into more criticisms because it is a very big movie, and it's a little boring to a lot boring. And I have a serious problem with, once again, pacing this week. There is a real mishandling of the runtime, and they have all this runtime, and the ending is rushed, believe it or not. So a little difficult for me to review because I was so immensely positive on Blanchett's performance here, and worth a watch for everyone. But the story itself, I was, I'll tell you what, Tom, I mean, how this film actually made me feel and how much I enjoyed the story, I was willing to give this in the 40s. I was really kind of coming out and just like the whole thing is ruined because of this.
Was it? Did it feel like it was wasting your time because at the end of it, so much wasn't important whatsoever?
Yeah. It's tough because we have this very slow, melancholy tone for, I'm talking up until the last 20 minutes of the film.
Okay.
And then the last 20 minutes jump weeks at a time, almost in montage type of format.
Okay.
And we get this hyper-condensed closing chapter to the story that, one, is immensely unsatisfying. Two, I strongly believe this does not hit on the tone or the message of what the film wants to deliver about power dynamics, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a second. And three, it's just really unfulfilling. It's just extremely unfulfilling to have this long-ass movie, and then guess what? We have to now rush our ending? You don't think you could have split it out a little bit more?
Literally, yeah, just make it a little bit more exciting and split that time up.
Absolutely. So I thought it was just, unfortunately, very mishandled on pacing and structure of the film.
Were you picking up anything as far as the film itself being a musical piece?
That's very interesting. Potentially.
Okay.
Potentially. Maybe that's also a little bit of my lack of expertise as well, with the many classical pieces that are being referenced and the high technical vocabulary that's being thrown out there for this classical music world to it, around composing, around everything like that.
Right. Props. Where did this director come from? Do we know him from much? Todd Field. Right?
Todd Field. He's done some stuff, but no, I really didn't have a lot of experience with him. So I mean, I don't want to be so critical because clearly he was able to connect with Blanchett in such a significant way. But yeah, we story-wise, we are focusing on Lydia Tarr, reflecting on her creative peak of her career and living throughout a kind of melancholy as she finds her way to her next piece that she's going to compose. During this time, we see all different types of professionals in the industry. Very slowly, we understand Tarr not by our lens being on Tar directly, we find out more about her through her relationships. And everyone just wants to kind of use each other. Everyone is just trying to get to a higher level.
Okay.
And Tar is the one who's kind of done it most successfully as well. So we have people kind of just almost even mimicking Tar. The story has a very critical look at power dynamics in rising to fame, whether it's in the sphere of high society, classical music, or whether it's in kind of a more cancel culture type of how that can turn into backlash for someone famous. And it attempts to apply this criticism to all positions of power. And that's really the focus of the story. Blanchette's acting is truly great, but the story of ambition is conveyed very weakly and paced extremely poorly. I would just say this film is just flat out way too long. Man, I was checking my clock.
You really checking your watch on this
I
one.
really was. To the point that I wasn't even going down for notes. You know what I mean? It was a lot.
So what's the deal with? It sounds like it's exactly what it was supposed to be, though. Did that add? Like, if it was a shorter story, would it almost be worse, or no? You know what I mean?
I don't have a problem with the length, and if anything, I enjoyed, like kind of this sad melancholy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
My problem was with, just how it's paced. I enjoy the tone of the film. The problem is we spend all this time building this melancholy atmosphere, and then the last 30 minutes of the film is rushed at breakneck speeds. And I kid you not, the conclusion of the film time jumps weeks at a time in the story.
Yeah.
And it breezes over everything we built towards. Yes, in breezing over these moments, does that play maybe into how important, Tar's career is at a certain point? Sure. There's definitely a tone in the film that artists have some time in the sun and then they're done. But boy, is it immensely unsatisfying, especially for a character and actress that we are so attached to through the effort of her acting alone. It feels like the ending of this film robs even Blanchett, no less, the audience.
Oh, okay.
And that's why I was so angry.
I was going to say, frustrated. Yeah,
I really was, because I could see where all the universal praise was in pieces of this film, but the backbone of the film I really had a problem with.
Yeah.
So,
well, also, and just the buy-in itself. You put your time in and paid attention, and then there's just like the payoff wasn't quite there because it was rushed on you.
Exactly. Just naturally, how any conclusion is, you're going to want to see those moments. Those are what we're building up the whole runtime for.
Right.
And to have that as unsatisfactory or unsatisfying and feeling rushed is just like, well, why did I say? I mean, if you're going to rush it, make it a 2-hour film and keep the same type of rush at the end. Don't make us wait for, 2 hours plus until that moment. Because it's one of those that I would say, yeah, if you like Cate Blanchett, go watch it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I didn't really like the film. Originally, like I said, I was originally going to be much, much harsher on this film. But upon reflection, I think Blanchett's performance here is huge. And just how maybe even times in the past, I can't really call a specific review, but where I've said, hey, this is your time with one actor in their best moments. This very well might be Blanchett's. So it's hard to maybe balance that for the ratings itself, but she really does kill it here, and I think that itself is worth a watch. The role alone is able to save the film, and very excited to see what Blanchett is able to get nominated for come awards season. We're going to go ahead and give Tar a 66.
Okay. Oh, wow. 66. Not bad. I mean, and if you're thinking this might be her Oscar nom or Oscar win, then, I feel like it is necessary to watch.
Yeah.
Not that we live and die on the Oscars,
Sure.
but if it's that good, I feel like you give it a watch.
Blanchett.
It just sucks that you got to stick through for 238 for maybe something that's not so exciting, not electric, and not all quite there.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like that just how I'm a contrarian with scores on like superhero movies and whatnot. I go much lower than what probably people expect me to. With these Oscar baity films, I mean, Tara in the 90s across the board for people's reception of this film.
Yeah, and to your point, it just can't be because the lead actor or actress is that that good. Like, the story needs to back it up. There needs to be something there. If you're going to be in the 90s, I understand that it's not 90s for us. Rotten Tomatoes 90s is pretty loose. But still, it should be a little bit some more standards than just that. But, all right, so 66 for Tar. And if you're into Blanchett, give it a watch.
And if anything, I'm excited to hear from anyone that is a huge Blanchett fan. I mean, yourself included.
Yeah, and I will say, where did you see this? AMC?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I would go see it soon because it's really shrinking in theaters.
Yeah.
It just went from 1,000, or about 1,100 theaters down to 360.
Wow. Okay, so maybe it's unrealistic.
Because it technically came out over a month ago.
Yeah, it was in early October.
In like 4 theaters.
Also,
and then it was 36 theaters. Then it was 141. But the big release was around October 28th. So
yeah. This was also identical to the movie Till. I originally had that set for October releases. Within our spooky month. But again, kind of had a weird release schedule. Was pushed later than when its technical release was.
Okay, all right. So let's go to another movie that's now playing. That's also doing poor in the theaters. This is Armageddon Time. As you say, again, I mean, this is another Oscar push, like you were kind of saying.
Yeah, for sure.
What do we get? It's a big cast because you have Anthony Hopkins, you have Anne Hathaway, Jeremy Strong. Kind of break this down a little bit. What do we get here?
Sure. So, writer-director James Gray back with a new feature film after 2019's Ad Astra, which I enjoyed quite a bit.
Oh.
A little bit odd that, he goes from a hardcore sci-fi like Ad Astra, almost like real nuts and bolts type of science fiction, and was surprised that, looking back at his filmography, he's touched on many different genres. So, you ask him, Tom, what's after sci-fi? Well, he's going to do a coming-of-age family drama. And that's what Armageddon Time is. It's very much in the line of what is hot now in theaters. You look at Belfast of last year.
Yeah.
You look at Come On, Come On.
I was going to say, which was in the 80s.
Oh, for sure.
You were a fan of that one.
Yeah. You look at coming out The Fabelmans. I think it's called The Fabelmans. Yeah, you look at The Fabelmans. All of them, they are following in suit. They want to do these like hardcore, not hardcore, but these mature family dramas.
Well, and so far, for the most part, hitting pretty well.
Yeah, I would say so. People are very nostalgic about these things.
Yeah. Well, and just, I mean, you like Belfast.
I did.
You really like Come On, Come On.
I did.
What do we get here?
A mixed bag. It's a mixed bag. I would say I'm most in love with the setting. The setting is 1980s in the borough of Queens, and there's a huge amount of work creating a hyper-authentic feel to the city. The feel of world building has been the focus, kind of a mini focus within this week, and I would say this movie keeps up with my praise here. The movie does a really good job at making us feel not only in 1980s, not in like a phony, you just hear an 80s music and whatnot. You feel it in mindset, you feel it in characters, and you feel it in the media that they consume, much more than just music. It's television, it's newscasts, it's things like that.
Okay, that's cool.
We follow a Jewish family during this time that is kind of coming to terms with changes in their lives. Most of all, this falls on the shoulders of their youngest child in the family, Paul, played by child actor Banks Repeta, I believe. It's Repeta or Repeta.
Yeah, it looks about right.
Yeah. Apparently he was in...
The Black Phone?
Yes, apparently he was in Black Phone. I don't recognize him, though. So
okay.
There was a lot of kids there.
Yeah.
and going back to Black Phone, kids were not one of the few praises of the film. So. Unfortunately, there is just not great dialogue for a movie about dialogue. One of the early catches I kind of built on while watching the movie is that despite it being 1980s New York in setting, there's very minimal accent work. And I'm not saying that people, I want people to say, "Hey, watch the way you go." I don't want it to be excessive like that.
Yeah, but it's still Queens.
Yeah, exactly. It just felt like no one was doing accent work, and I was like, a little bit odd. And unfortunately, the script is so overbearing that actors honestly can't help but fall into a checklist of topics for the story. The many kid performances remind me of Come On, Come On, where they are such characters that realism really isn't the focus at all. They're hyper characters, and in that the criticism of kid acting is a little bit skewed. It's a little bit different because they're trying to be maybe a little bit annoying in ways, and they're trying to maybe be ultra hyper and things like that. It's also a very cute movie, I would say. Most of that falls on Repeta's performance. So there's a great daydreaming sequence that they're in the I forget the museum, the Guggenheimer or something like that, in Manhattan. He has just a fun daydream sequence that his art piece, his like crappy superhero drawings are being like heralded as one of the best art pieces in the whole museum. So there's cute moments in this, and I think there's a lot of cute ways that imagination kind of plays into that. Unfortunately, that's really not the focus of the story, and the story definitely has a focus. Like I said, if anything, the script was robbing me of the experience here because it felt like actors had a hit list and they had to hit on these points to kind of shove it down your throat a little bit. It was, again, Oscar baity. You know what I mean? I don't like using that term, but
it's a thing though.
Yeah.
Like it totally.
And absolutely is.
Yeah.
Anthony Hopkins is my last note, with maybe the exception of some of that criticism. Anthony Hopkins, once again, is kind of just doing his own thing. He's certainly not a New Yorker in this.
Right.
But he's also excellent because it feels like just an interview with Anthony Hopkins. He's just like calling to like old stories and singing like, you know, old like Irish hymns and things like that.
That's cool. Yeah. I mean, who doesn't like to see old Anthony Hopkins on screen?
Yeah.
That's all right.
So interesting, and definitely if you like Anthony Hopkins, you know, he was really good in this.
Well, how was Jeremy Strong?
Strong's all right.
Okay.
Everyone else is honestly just all right, because I think it's not because of the performances, it's because of the script, really.
Like nothing's there for them to work. They have nothing to work on. Okay.
Yeah. The story's dramatic salt is highlighting systemic inequality, primarily in the school system. We have our Jewish family, and then we also have a black family in the focus, and we see how the prejudice kind of affects both differently. Constantly, the two young friends are put in positions where privilege is examined throughout the film. And almost like chapter marks, the film has these moments building in stakes as the runtime goes along. We have almost a check-in with his friend, or Paul's friend. Sometimes it's very balanced. It's balanced well into dialogue. At best, it's balanced into the world building itself. That's really at its peak. Other times, though, at worst, it is delivered like a sledgehammer.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Like, in no way would characters, specifically children, say certain lines. It's just, it strips me from it. It's frustrating. It kind of destroyed the very natural rhythm the film had.
So really, did you know did he write Ad Astra?
Yeah. He's a writer-director for sure.
Okay.
He pens and then he directs.
Because, I mean, you really would say that so much comes out of the script then with this.
Oh, yeah.
Like just a bunch just on the screen, right?
Absolutely. And I feel like his filmmaking was quite admirable here. Again, the world building is clearly his vision.
Yeah, it was nice, yeah.
You know, I mean, maybe it's just that split his focus too much. Maybe it's a simple factor that we have, you know, you need to kind of work to your expertise.
Yeah.
Obviously, he's strong in writing, but you know, have a second writer there if you are going to be directing as well. You know, it's like a director that stars as an actor in his own film.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, other times, like I said, a sledgehammer. It is put down your throat. I think the worst of this comes from Paul's family dinner sequences, which where the film kind of tries an overlapping group talk, similar to what we focused on with Coherence, but fails at it immensely because the whole table goes quiet or the sound focuses away when one character is delivering something specific to the message or the tone that they're trying to get across. That is not how you do that type of group talk. The very fact that it's all overlapping and you're there to kind of pick it up naturally, not be focused in on it.
Yeah, it's very manufactured.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Even how the characters talk, again, you will have them talk naturally. We'll have them talk in a parental way, and I think the coming of age aspect of this is probably most notable. But then out of nowhere, you know, we have this kind of parasocial economic commentary from a character, and some of them work well in the continuity of the film. Others in no way would children, in no way would a character talk like this in 1980, and it strips me out of it. It's a little tough, and like I said, I can't fault the performances itself too much. I think it squarely falls on the writing, and I just think out of the two roles Gray is filling, filmmaking was the strong suit, and the writing suffers by the balancing act. Like I said in the beginning, much like the recent Best Picture winner Coda, this film belongs to the emerging genre of family mature drama. And don't get me wrong, this film is leagues better than Coda. The Disney Channel, I still am in disbelief that won,
Well, actually.
Yeah.
Worse than Spotlight.
Yeah,
Really.
honestly, yeah. All these films, they suffer when the narrative is primarily on the kid actor's shoulders to deliver it. That is on full display here, and there's a lot of this sociological perspective that the film tries to offer. A good message as well, but far too aware it's giving the message and far too manipulative in who is giving the message throughout the actors' roles. We're going to go ahead and give Armageddon Time a 69.
Okay.
Good, a lot of these films, good in a lot of ways, rough in a lot of ways too. I feel like with these films, it's... I have to almost prove a reason why it's not so high up in the scores like everyone is praising it to be.
So is this being praised that much?
I think so. I think it's definitely, you put Hopkins in a film that he cries,
that's true.
What I mean? It's
another one, folks, you're going to want to go see it soon. It might be out of theaters shortly.
It's going to be kicked out.
These movies are not making money.
Yeah. Now, I believe Armageddon Time was initially a Cannes release, Cannes Film Festival release.
Okay.
And that's why we're getting some of this. And who knows, just like last year, there may be kind of a second or third life in this case on some of these films when and if they get, nominated,
Oh, very true. Mm-hmm. If the nomination comes.
Right.
Could you really see this getting nominated? What would this get nominated for? Like what would...
Screenplay.
The shitty screenplay?
I mean, the people are they're gonna think that it's natural because it has a social message to give, but no respect to it.
I mean, the one through line to that review was that the screenplay was bad.
Right. I think people are going to kind of fall for it, though. I don't know. Maybe that's
probably.
Me.
It's the Oscars.
Maybe that's me being a little bit too rough.
Probably not. I mean, look, Coda won.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. Well, perfect point.
Yeah, and Spotlight won.
And Armageddon Time's going to win. No, I'm joking.
All right, maybe this will win. Actually,
who knows? It might
be
win
the
it
first
all.
Marvel thing. Okay,
it might win it all.
All right, folks. So we're gonna finish this up here. This is the big blockbuster out. This is Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, directed by Ryan Coogler.
Why you gotta say it like that?
What is how is returning to this IP? Obviously, let me try it again. Chittawa, some.
Stop.
Who's the one who died? Who's the guy?
Chadwick Boseman. Chittawa.
I'm thinking of somebody else. Who's our main peeps here? Who are we dealing with?
So yeah, this is. let me maybe run this back a bit different.
Derailed it right away.
I know, yeah. The original Black Panther was a pretty decent film. I give it a 74. I wasn't gonna watch it again.
Pretty good.
Yeah, it was a pretty good film. Honestly, the original Black Panther was like the Marvel MCU take on like a James Bond type of format. It was very jet set.
Okay. Yeah.
And yeah, it really was the highlight at the time for the MCU for a lot of reasons. Chadwick Boseman, rest in peace, had immediate star power on screen. I would say bringing a lot of non-MCU fans. Killmonger, played by Michael B. Jordan, remains one of the best well-written villains of the entire MCU. And really, really great stuff in there. And I would say even as a negative, the movie highlights the problem in CGI quality that hurts the Disney Marvel pipeline to today. So again, that first Black Panther is a very interesting film to watch for a variety of reasons. But there is a huge task director Ryan Coogler had to take on in losing Boseman as his lead. This reminded me a lot of the gap Christopher Nolan had to fill when losing Heath Ledger. And the scramble to switch tracks and storytelling. Apparently, the script was already done by the time. I mean, they weren't done. They weren't doing shooting, but the script was fully done when obviously the news broke. And yeah, I don't envy the team having to pivot so hard in the story, and clearly a story that probably their original draft they were pretty excited about too.
Yeah, it's interesting. That's good that he had control. He wrote the first one as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then for him to be writing the second one, at least he has full control, kind of. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? That matters.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because if you're going to have to do a hard pivot, it's his imagination going. It's you know what I mean? Doesn't have to go through not multiple hoops, basically.
Yeah. I gotta say, this is, in both good and bad ways, the bottom line here, this is not a Marvel movie. I mean, it is a Marvel movie.
Huh.
It does not have the problems of a Marvel movie. Cringy comedy, bad CGI. Not a film, not a movie that has those issues. Doesn't really fit into, you see which scenes are plugging the rest of the MCU.
Yeah.
Doesn't really have that problem.
These are all good things. Those are 3 good things.
3 very good things. The film is 2 hours and 40 minutes, though, and it's a superhero movie, and that's a very bad thing. There's not a lot for this movie to say, and certainly in no way has to be 2 hours and 40 minutes. I watched this with my buddy Dave, or our buddy Dave, and he goes, 3 hours for what? The guy isn't even in it. And,
It's so true.
He's got a good point there. He's got a really good point there. Why is it 3 hours if the guy isn't even in it? I straight up felt bad for the kids in the audience. This is not a fun movie. This is a movie about mourning. The opening sequences immediately put Boseman, that he's passed away. I thought for a little bit that, especially with Black Panther as a character, he has a fully sealed mask. So I thought it's Marvel CGI. They're just going to have like a first hour CGI. No. Opening sequences are Boseman passing. So it's very sad. All these characters are mourning for the entirety of the film.
That's a little bit much for 248.
Yeah, exactly. And believe me, I like this approach. I do something new. It's what we always say: do something new with Marvel.
Yeah, I would rather take sad and like morose kind of superhero than typical jokey Marvel.
Yeah.
I at this point, give me anything but. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
But did it pick up where it needed to? Did it have action where there should have been?
No.
It was just straight.
This is like 1/5 action. It really is. I can't even call it a superhero action film. It's almost like I would describe this film as a send off to Chadwick Boseman as a film.
Really?
Yeah, it's really like in honor of him, and that's okay because I like Chadwick as an actor. It's obviously tragic, the story of this, but almost there, again, it is failing in different ways that a Marvel film would not fail. And at that point, I'm just kind of saying, well, it is still trying to be this close to Phase 4 for MCU.
Right.
Who really gives a crap about MCU? It was, or Phase 4. It's been, an absolute dumpster fire that we've commented almost on every one of these films. That there's no direction and there's no, where are we going with this stuff? This film does a poor job at closing that out because of its focus.
So, would you have liked to see kind of if it's going to be 2 hours and 40 minutes, kind of 1/3 morning? And then all of a sudden, we're back in things now, and still make something unique and different.
Yeah, absolutely. There's got to be a balance to it, and some of my criticism of the action is this 1/5 action. What action is there?
Yeah,
the action and specifically the choreography are very poor. It does not.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it does not even have the problems of MCU kung fu. Like it's just bad.
How was choreography in the first one with him?
Much better because there's a lot of set pieces
Coogler.
that he has to be fighting Black Panther. He has to fight among to prove his rightfulness to get the Black Panther flower or I forget what it is. So okay. I'm running out of patience. I really wonder what a couple more years into this, how much patience I will have to spew the comic book knowledge. At all. Like, I may not be interested at all in talking about it.
It gets to a point, you talk about one, you talk about all of them.
Yeah, for real.
So what's there to gain here? Is it good that you watch this still?
I think it's a movie for people that really love Boseman. I think it's a movie that people really love Black Panther. I think it's
is Black Panther, is it important to watch it for Black Panther? Or is it really that Boswick heavy?
It's kind of both. I
can't wait to see the third one. I'm interested to see Black Panther 3 now.
Is there? I don't know if there will be a Black Panther 3.
I'm sure there's going to be a Black Panther 3.
Probably.
Just watch the box office.
Yeah, probably.
But you know what I mean? So we have, because if 1 was such a hit, 2 is sad, and then maybe 3 is what you were looking for halfway through of this film, if you can picture that.
Right. Who knows? And don't get me wrong, I like, this kind of mournful tone to an extent. Endgame is probably my favorite out of all these films. And
but it can't be the whole film.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that nowhere is near the whole film, but I really did like the morning tone. It's handled in a very appropriate way in the first part of this film, but then continues to be the only tone the film juggles. To have a big, sad, slow movie come out to close Phase 4 for MCU is just a bit tough, and I felt this movie was very boring and just did not justify its runtime. And again, like I said, I kind of felt bad for some of the kids in the theater because they were expecting, like this fun, Black Panther is an icon now. No, this is not that movie. Our story is around the nation of Wakanda mourning, again, the loss of their beloved T'Challa. Equally, the absence of their protector, the Black Panther. So this kind of creates an interesting kind of... it invites forces to be eyeing up Wakanda as a nation to say, oh, they don't have a protector, now is the time to strike. Namely, the governments of the world looking to seize the ever-valuable vibranium, which is definitely on the top 10 of most idiotic MacGuffins that you can, vibranium. Yeah. It's a step below unobtainium for Avatar.
Unobtainium's the worst.
That is the ultimate example. But Wakanda's biggest threat looms below as the next MCU villain up is Namor, leader of an aquatic army with their own vibranium to boot. Namor is a good villain. I would say that's a positive here.
Okay.
Namor, a.k.a. the Submariner, is a mutant, so there is some connection to both X-Men and Fantastic Four that they're building there.
Ooh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah. He has a kind of a good and bad role in comics that he's played for a long time. He's also like a super old character, like one of the first Marvel comic book characters, period. And unfortunately, you can kind of summarize him to be Marvel's Aquaman, because that's what he is.
Okay.
He's
evil Aquaman.
Anti-hero Aquaman.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, he's not exactly evil, but he's an old, ancient ruler. He's just going to be evil by the nature of him not agreeing morally with how things should be done.
And he's within, I don't want to ask too much. I don't want to give stuff away.
Oh, okay, go for it.
But he's within the Wakanda, safeguards. He's in the water.
No. He's he rules all the oceans.
Oh. He's okay.
Yeah.
He's not in that protected land where you have to go. Okay.
No. Yeah, and I think this civilization versus civilization conflict is probably what I most enjoyed about this film, because we don't have a central hero for a lot of the film. It's bouncing around again to this mournful tone for how everyone's kind of dealing with the loss of their loved one, and Black Panther. But yeah, I kind of enjoyed these. It was kind of nation versus nation, and that was that was kind of interesting. Once again, not Marvel in any sort of way. Yeah, this was a Ryan Coogler film, which is good but just kind of a little bad in execution. They, kind of have a similar self-sustaining method. They've stayed away from the meddling of men on the surface, and they've been doing that because of the technology. So, much in line with the first film, Namor's motivations as a villain are well explained and logical, and I really enjoyed the performance here. I might butcher the name, Tenoch Huerta, I believe his name is.
Well, that's a lot better than what I was going to. Because I was looking at it, and I was like, I don't even know how to do it. I think you're good. Tenoch Huerta.
Yeah, there we go.
We don't really know him very much.
No. But he did a good job, and I like the kind of the Aztec stylings to Namor, which is entirely new to the character as well.
Oh, not representative of the comics? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, but in a good way.
Okay.
Namor has also existed for decades upon decades, so you can do something new with the character,
Yeah.
I'm fine with the remix of it, basically. Okay. But that's really where my praise ends, because, like I said, it is a slog to get through. Like I said already, fights of the film take a big back seat. Action and choreography was just not hitting for me at all. And I thought the little that we get from fight sequences was a serious step backwards, and I mean a serious step backwards. There are these idiotic water grenades that are way overused in the film, and Namor's forces uses these water grenades, and you could just feel that they are just jumping through set piece after set piece to make these water grenades actually threatening. In no way are these water grenades threatening. It's like being in the splash zone at SeaWorld. That's the effect here. It is not a lethal grenade. So. Yeah, the film also wants to be taken much more seriously. I actually like the composer here, Ludwig Göransson, I think his name. We touched on him with Turning Red, and he did Tenet, and he's really on the rise.
Tenet was pretty cool,
Yeah.
As far as the sound goes.
This Göransson is really on the rise as far as a talent. He also, of course, made the very iconic Mandalorian theme, which I think anyone that watches the show is in love with. So, absence of music in scenes conveys a lot. The film is definitely trying to be taken seriously, but the logic of the film isn't there to catch it up. The serious tone feels appropriate for the first half, but when it gets to that 2-hour mark, it's flat out exhausting. I'm done with the film.
Really?
I'm done with the film. Yeah. Like, I was just like, okay, please, God, let this end.
It's like,
maybe that's a little dramatic.
It's like a 2-hour and 40-minute funeral.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
And
that's
to
not
have
good for Mars,
the
no.
small sprinkling of action not pay off or not even be visually like a breath of fresh air for the film.
Yeah,
it was just like
it's doubly bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like I said, I'll end with saying this: in no way does this film have the usual Marvel problems. Like I opened up, there's no cringy jokes. There's no bad CGI. There's CGI, but it's not bad. Not like, if anything, Black Panther 1 has that terrible sequence that they're fighting on the railways. It's probably some of the worst CGI Marvel has put out. So it's very interesting that I came to this film thinking I would have the usual rap sheet with Marvel, and I was totally, completely wrong, but unfortunately it still stumbles in a big way, and I don't find the film too important to watch for MCU continuity. Certainly a weak ending to Phase 4, and like I said, I mean, not something that is really fun to watch for the family or kids to bring along to. You know what I mean? You know, maybe if your kid's really sad about Bozeman dying, you know, he's curious, who's going to be Black Panther. You know, that's where you watch this film, I guess.
It's weird to have a 2-hour and 40-minute movie where it's just all send off to this guy that really was in this for like one movie.
Yeah.
And Black Panther was a big movie. It was one of the best grossing for Marvel.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, it did unbelievably well.
Yep.
But it's weird to dedicate so much time. That's all.
It would be like if Dark Knight Rises was all about like Ledger in a weird way.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Or if they did an Iron Man 4 when it was all about,
oh, sure.
like, let's just say Tony Stark's dead. And then, you know what I mean? But that you could see because Iron Man, that's what built the MCU universe as far as the film. I don't know. It's a lot of dedication. Not saying he wasn't a good actor. Not saying Black Panther wasn't massive for Marvel. Sure. It was. But you got to weigh that. You got to balance it.
And again, I kind of return to my original, I mean, it's for the birds, but my original kind of thought process on how this movie would be structured. I say, okay, Marvel, Disney, they love making CGI characters. They love putting CGI characters on dead, real people posthumously. I thought we were going to get a triumphant end to Black Panther, like an hour of just him, like, battling Namor's forces and then he dies or something like that. No, that's not the case here, and I think the film is probably weaker for that less popcorny, cartoonish approach a little bit. So I think this will be a watch for a lot of people because a lot of people love that original, and like you said, it's going to be doing well in the box office. So the movie and the story gets lost in its own mourning and doesn't feel the primary role as a Black Panther film, not a Chadwick Boseman film. We're going to go ahead and give Black Panther Wakanda Forever a 54.
Ooh, 54. Wow.
Yeah. Like I said, it was a slog.
That
was
sucks.
a slog.
It's just weird to hear that the big Black Panther Marvel movie was a slog to go through.
Real.
That's crazy.
For real. Yeah. Like I said, just a tough recommendation for like kids watching this too. Like, it's kind of a little too heavy, honestly. But
what a bummer. I mean, what a weird little film then.
Yeah.
Big film.
Yeah.
But
big film. Weird big film. This could be something that maybe without the context of Phase 4 Marvel and just seeing how much of a shit show it is, maybe I'll be more positive on this as time passes and kind of reflecting on it. But yeah, wasn't digging it.
Yeah.
Wasn't digging it above that 50s mark.
all right, Vin, looking at any other of these, Anything you'd like to add or roll credits here?
I think we're good. There is one of the rare circumstance that I actually was excited over a trailer. I hate trailers.
Whoa. One of the ones you saw this week.
Yes. I think the movie is called Inside with Willem Dafoe. He plays like a bank robber, an art robber, and he gets trapped in like a what do they call that? Like a panic room or something like that.
Really?
It looks good. The trailer, it gave you just the right amount of magic. I'm really hoping they don't release a second trailer. It comes out in March.
Did you see the studio?
No, I actually didn't. I think Bleecker Street? No, maybe not.
Okay. Yeah. It doesn't matter. It's Willem Dafoe, which is awesome.
Yeah, I know. And I bring it up because you and I love it. I mean, yeah. We love The Hunter. That's a weird Willem Dafoe.
Like The Hunter, yeah. He's just in general. He was the best part of Spider-Man Homecoming, too.
Yeah, for real.
Wow, okay. Yeah, rare trailer excitement.
Yeah, rare trailer excitement.
Cool, man. All right. Vin, thanks for watching these. Thanks for stopping by. Folks at home, we'll run it down one more time here. We have Beowulf with a 31%, Spotlight with a 73%, Tar with a 66%, Armageddon Time with a 69%, and Black Panther Wakanda Forever with a 54%. Folks, we thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next week on the Daily Ratings Podcast. If you enjoyed the podcast, if you would, could you give us a good rating or tell a friend about us? If you're wondering if a film is worth a watch, or if you'd just like to see more movie ratings from Vince, be sure to stop by thedailyratings.com, where we have our ever-expanding catalog of films. Also, if you found value in the podcast or our site, become a producer and go to the donations tab on thedailyratings.com. You can donate whatever amount of value you feel you received from us. We're looking to build this into something large and great, but be independent from those corporate sponsors. So we greatly appreciate any support from you all. So thanks so much, and we'll see you next time on the Daily Ratings Podcast.